went away. Here we go.
Take it away.
Hi, everybody. This is going to be difficult, but it's something that you really got to learn. And so we're going to go over it. If you would make a little tick mark against something you didn't totally understand, rather than interruptions as we go, and then we can go back and ask questions, okay? To first start out, the difference between a contract and an offer, there's times agents will say to you, oh, I'm bringing you a contract. Well, it's not really a contract, it's an offer, okay? And when you write the offer, this is where this is so important. First of all, we start out, what date is it offered on? That's pretty self-explanatory. And then you have your buyer and your seller. Now you want to have full legal names on this. We don't want any Daryl the man or Billy Joe. We want full legal names so that the attorneys or the title company will be able to look that up and know that they are the true legal names. Then we go down here, who is representing who? What's that?
Like if it's a LLC that they need.
Okay, so if it's not a buyer or seller, it might be a company, it could be a trustee, could be an LLC. So you just have to have who is buying and who is selling in the legal sense. Then we go down here, and who are you working for? That next paragraph just simply states out who is representing who in the transaction. So it'd be Coldwell Banker, whoever the listing agent is, vice versa, however that works out. Excuse me. Number one, you're going to go to real property. Now, this is really important that you get it correctly. The listing agent, if you're working as a buyer's agent, should have that on the listing. However, it behooves you to go to the tax record and make sure that it is correct, or you can go to the real estate assessment. And you might not be able to fill out everything on that. Just look to see what you can fill out and check it against the listing to make sure that it coincides with what they have listed. Okay, so you get as much as you can on that. The price and financing. Okay, a down payment simply means this. Somebody buys a house for $200,000. All right, they decide that they are going to put down 5%. Okay, so that down payment is separate. The financing is the first trust. In your licensing class, you probably learned that in the state of Virginia, it's not called a mortgage, it's called a first trust. It's the same thing, but that's what it's called. So you put down your first trust. In other words, how much are they going to be borrowing? And then as you go down to complete it, you subtract that out, okay, to get your financing done. So here we go. Down payment, put that amount in. I like the dollar amount versus a percentage because I don't think people at my math level, I don't like dealing with percentage. I have problems with decimals. So I always just put the dollar amount down. So then you go down and you say, what kind of loan are we getting? Conventional, VA, FHA, or other. In the process of trying to write an offer, you need to have a really good lender that you're working with, or find out from the buyer who their lender is, because that becomes really important when you're writing an offer. The reason is, well, we're going to second trust, they really don't do anymore. They used to do second trust long time ago. Maybe a builder would hold back money or something like that. Forget about the second trust. Then the seller held trust as if it would be a for sale by owner. But the market we're in, nobody's doing that anymore. So you're going to be basically working on the first trust. So you've got the total financing. In other words, that is the amount minus the down payment. Are you with me on that? And then the total thing, what is the sales price? In other words, what did you write the offer for? Now they've moved the seller subsidy over here. So the seller subsidy is what the seller has agreed to pay to help in the closing costs. All right. Now that's going to be subtracted out. All right. So the sales price less the seller subsidy. Does everybody understand that? Questions?
I would ask them, I would suggest for the new agents to always make sure they contact their lender and ask them for
I
that
know,
amount.
yeah, I was just gonna say that. What you wanna do, when you're working with the lender, you wanna basically have a really good relationship with the lender that you can call them on a Saturday or a Sunday. Because if you pick a conventional loan, that's gonna be different in what the subsidy can be given. In other words, conventionally might let you have 6%, VA, something. So you have to know with your lender how much you can put down for the seller subsidy. Okay. Now, here's where your ZIP forms are going to come in, because everybody should understand now from their licensee class what a contingency is. The contingency simply means, yes, we want to buy this home, but we're going to make it contingent on some things. We're going to make it contingent on financing, probably. We're going to make it contingent on a home inspection. We're going to make it contingent on an appraisal. So that's what your contingency is. So once you get into your ZIP forms, you'll be attaching other forms to the contract that will show your contingencies, right? And you'll see those, it'll be like a VA contingency, conventional financing contingency. And you'll see at the end of the contract how we tie that all together, because they do have a housekeeping list that reminds you, I've got to have that attached, okay? Now your deposit will be made, what you want to do is you want to get it the day you write the offer. It gets a little confusing if you have to wait for them to go home and, you know, get it out of their card or their debit card or whatever. But if for any reason they do not hand you that money or check, that must be stated in the contract. Because once that escrow check is received, it has to be deposited within 5 days of the contract. So just be sure, if you don't have it in hand, you go to the next page over where it shows you when are you going to get it, okay? I think when new agents often wonder, well, how much should I get in a deposit? You know, I don't know. Well, I would say in our area, you could probably go with 1 or 2% of the sales price. That would be okay. You know, you don't really have to have a deposit. You can get $1 will make that contract enforceable. And I've worked with veterans who don't have any money. I've worked with new buyers. They don't have any. So if it's 500, it's 500. The bigger homes, they look for a better show of money, but it doesn't mean that the contract's not good. Okay, but get what you can. Here's the caveat on that. It used to be, and maybe it's still the same, I don't know, that people love getting those big deposits. But here's what can happen. Once that deposit, if there's an argument over the contract, people won't sign the release. That money sits in the broker's office until the courts tell him or her when it can be released. So I go with 1 or 2%. That seems, and if they say they don't have that much, take what you can get. You know, the seller can always come back and say, I want more. I want a more face shown. So work with your people on what they can do. All right, we're going on down there, Michelle. Okay, so on the escrow deposit, if you're working with the buyer, it will be held here at Coldwell Banker. Okay, whoever's writing the offer is more than likely going to hold the deposit at their company. There's always different things that could happen on that, but that's usually they would make it out to Coldwell Banker. Let's talk a little bit. Well, in the escrow agent, it talks about that. You know, you can memorize all this stuff, but basically what you need to tell a person about escrow is the money will be held in escrow. It'll be credited at closing. And that's pretty much it. The rest goes into a lot of gobbledygook about stuff that you're really not going to, you can read it, but you don't want to sit there and read it to them. You just can say that's what's going to happen. It's a show of good faith to the seller that you want to buy the property. Okay. Now, on settlement, it tells you about the terms of the contract. When are they going to close on this? And it says there, if settlement date falls on a Saturday, Sunday, or legal holiday, then settlement will be on the prior business day. Well, if you're writing the contract, hopefully you have sense enough not to show settlement on a Saturday or Sunday or a holiday, because the courts aren't going to be open. Title company probably won't be open. So you pick a day that is best for it to close. Now, in doing this, the buyer has the right to choose whoever settlement agent they want. They have that right. On the same hand, the seller can go to any attorney and get his deed made. They don't have to go to the same place. But the buyer does have that right to pick whoever they want. If they don't know who they want, they have 10 days to do it. But as an agent, you're going to have a list probably of various people. Our wonderful title company, Freedom, and any other attorney, or you'll have a list of people and you give it to them. You don't want to firmly recommend somebody, but you can always disclose on a list that these are the people that have provided me good service. Okay. And I can say that Freedom Title is one of the best. Let me see where we are here. Now, what the settlement company is doing, and this is going to be helpful to you all too. You know, it's hard to figure out sometimes with a buyer. Well, how much is all of this going to cost me? Okay, so you can do try to figure it best you can, but when they go to the lender is actually going to give them information about how much the closing costs and everything is going to be. So again, rely on your lender. Don't try to put stuff down that you don't totally understand. Just tell them you'll call the lender, you'll get it. Never try to fool your way through it. Okay, just be honest, and I'll get you that information. I'll ask around, I'll get it for you. Okay, so the down payment, obviously, if they're making a down payment, that's got to be brought to the closing table by a cashier's check or bank wired funds. They bring, if they're put 20,000 down, they bring that to the closing table. It's very, very important to tell your people when they get into wiring funds that there's a lot of scams going on where people are basically bilked out of money. So they want to talk to only the person they're working with, either in the attorney's office or the title company, so they know where they're wiring money, because they have had things where people will play like they're the title company, get on the phone. People have sent money through there and it's been stolen. So you want to really, really warn them on that. Now, delivery of the contract number 6. What's that talking about? It's talking about how are we going to deliver various documents during the transaction. And it could be that you want to do, and most of people are using email now. So if you're working as a buyer's agent, you don't really know how the seller wants it. So that'll be filled in by the other agent. But what we're talking about is how will, for instance, how will the homeowner's package be delivered? You need to tell them in this A and B how they are going to accept delivery of documents. Okay. All right. The Virginia Property Disclosure Act. This, Virginia is a state of buyer beware. The seller can fill out the Seller Disclosure Act, but he doesn't really have to say anything about his property. I mean, and even if he's sued afterwards, Virginia is really, they lean a little bit more towards the person who owned the property. That's where, in fact, it comes in. Always have a home inspection. Always, always, always have a home inspection. If your people will not have a home inspection, send an email to them afterwards and say, I'm sorry you decided not to have a home inspection. I wish you would reconsider. Have a paper trail. Because guess what? If the roof starts leaking after they move in, they're not gonna call a roofer, they're gonna call you. And so you wanna have a paper trail saying, I told you, you needed to get a home inspection. So that's pretty much it. But here, there are exemptions to the residential property disclosure. It could be a trust, it could be a owner to kid, you know, various, what do I have down here? Hang on. Bankruptcy, foreclosures, trustees for an estate. And at one time, and Sheila can tell me if I'm right or wrong, they used to have a builder if it was the first home he built for them, if it was the first home, and I think that's still true. And I will add here too, even if a builder built a house, I would have a home inspection done. Because it just makes sense to me. If you're spending $300,000 on a property, yeah, the builder's a good builder, blah, 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 but I'd still want a home inspection. So I'm just telling you things that I would do. And I think it's important to be safe rather than sorry. Because again, they like to call you at 3 o'clock when the roof leaks. Okay, I think we're done with that.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, this is just such a pain. This Virginia Property Owners Association, the HOA. Hopefully you're going to work with the seller that yes, we pay HOA. And here is the address of the homeowners association. And here's a copy of our, what do you call them? What is it for the homeowners? The covenants or whatever you want to call them. Okay. So anyway, but a lot of times the homeowners say, oh, I don't know if we have a homeowners thing or not. This just comes a real research thing. You ask agents in the office, you call the board office, you search around, do the best you can. You become an investigator to find out about the HOA package. 8 times out of 10, they'll have something on it. Now, when you take a listing, I would recommend you tell the person, we need to get a homeowner's package now. Because see, if you wait until the contract or the offer comes in and you don't have the package, then guess what? You have to wait for the package. Then you have to wait for the person to look over the package. And then the person decides, well, I can't park my trailer there, so I'm not going to buy this property. So, and if the seller complains about it, saying, well, I don't want to spend that money, just tell them, no, you need to spend that money. You need to do it now. You're the professional. You're in control. You tell them what needs to be done. Okay. Okay, again, we're getting to how the packet wants to be delivered. I think mostly they're doing them electronically now. They're not doing them. I don't think they're printing them. Some of them are really, really thick. Now, I will go to Sheila on this. I have never sold a condo. They don't really have condos here. Maybe 2 here. Northern Virginia, I'm sure, sells a bunch of them. The only thing I ever learned from a condo was that you have to get the resale certificate. That's all I know. So I would say if you get involved with the condo, reach out to your esteemed sales manager here, and she will help you.
I sold one.
You did?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Well, that's one more than I did.
And can I just add one thing, just because of the time frame, they only have a certain time frame to read it
And get it back.
and get it back and say, no, we want to back out of the contract. So I would, and the time of delivery, if they deliver it to you as an agent, if they deliver it to you, the time starts right then.
The clock goes
The
on.
clock goes on as soon as the agent gets it. So my personal thing is, I think it needs to go to the owner or your buyer, your client, and that way they have a little bit longer.
They do, and then if you happen to be on vacation or something like that and it comes in, I mean, it could be a real mess. So I think it really, I agree with her that it needs to go to the client. Okay, let's get that condo stuff. Okay, I've talked to various agents in the office about this, and they agree that they think that the seller will deliver property in the same physical condition as the date of the home inspection is the best date to put down there, okay? Then all you do is check whether or not it's contingent on a home inspection. You can see the little things there. Is it not? So that's pretty self-explanatory. And buyer acknowledges that except as otherwise specified in the contract, property, including electrical, plumbing, existing appliances, heating, air conditioning equipment, and fixtures shall convey in as-is condition as of the date specified above. So that's why you're picking that, because your inspector is going to go in and inspect the fridge and various things. So you want it working as of that date, okay? Access to property is what it says. Like during the transaction, appraisers and various inspectors are going to have to get into the property to do what they need to do. And this gives the seller saying that he will give the right for these people to go to the property. And also you would have the right as the agent with your person 7 days prior to settlement to do a walkthrough. I totally recommend don't skip this step. If you skip it, you could go to closing and guess what? Go home and they find out there's water in the basement. So you need to do this. You always have to do your job thoroughly. You're going to the table, you're going to earn your money, you need to do your job. Okay.
I'm going to add something with Coldwell Banker Premier. If you want to get paid, you have to have it.
Yes.
It is for E&O insurance also. That helps us with that. But when you do your walkthrough, when you learn your forms, the walkthrough form is going to be in there. When you do your walkthrough, please make sure that you're not the one going through and you're checking everything. Have a conversation with them. Say, this is a walkthrough. This is your final time to look over everything. So as it was at home inspection, that's how it's supposed to be right now. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk through with you. I'm going to tell you what needs to be looked at. If we're at the oven and the stove, you are the one that's going to turn on the knobs. You're going to tell me, is it working? Is it not working? I have them do it because if you go through and you check it, well, I didn't, you're the one that did it.
Mhm.
So I have them do that. And then once it's all done, and then we can go over how you fill that out later. But it's very imperative you do it for a number of reasons. But if you want paid, you will do it because we don't give checks out unless it's done.
And try to have your people come, not rushing through it. I can tell you a very short experience I had, but these people were from out of town. They were running late. The closing was going to happen. So I was up at the property. We had a home inspection and I was waiting. They came in, rush through. And then we went to closing, and 2 hours later, I got a call from her, and the woman in the house had removed all the carpet on top, and there were pee stains all over it. And the home inspector didn't get it. I didn't get it. She was so livid with me. It was just unbelievable. So you want to make sure, take your time doing it and get it done. And like Sheila said, have them look at it. Don't you make that decision, okay? All right, we'll go on up here.
Okay, are we here?
Yeah, and down here at the bottom, and it says there, unless otherwise agreed in writing, all surface and well-mounted electronic components, devices do not convey. However, all related mounts, brackets, hardware do convey. If more than one of the item conveys, the number of items is noted. Now, when you're writing a contract, sometimes it comes into here, the buyer really wants that swing set. Okay, so you can write it in there, even if it doesn't show that they will, and then the buyer can decide, no, they may not have put it in the listing, but you can ask. All they can do is say no. Okay. Now here's where it's real important as you're going through the home to put, I put yes and no, because I like to see the no too, as I go down through the brackets there. So you want to go through and make sure that you're very careful in doing this. And this you want to go through with your seller when you take the listing too, you know, and you just want to make sure you have it done correctly, and especially with your buyer. And down there where it says other, that's where you could put the swing set or the whatever, you know, whatever else they think. They may want a chandelier that they saw in the house, even though it says it wouldn't convey, they might want to ask anyway. And maybe the seller will say, I'll give it to them. We're leaving. And then on your fuel tanks, unless otherwise agree, I've never really seen fuel tanks that are leased, but I guess they could be. The oil in the tanks will go to the buyer. But I have seen where the seller says, no, they have to pay me for that. So, I mean, it's never, nothing is ever cut in stone. Some will say, well, I just filled that, I want money for it. So you have to do it. And leased items could be a water filter, anything like that, that you would have to find out if they're going to convey. But normally lease things are, the seller gets rid of his lease, and then if the buyer wants their own lease, they will write that.
Can I mention something about this fuel tanks? On fuel tanks, two things on fuel tanks. If it's an underground tank, it is very important, because after a certain period of time, they go bad. But they actually started giving certifications. So if it's a underground tank, you need to ask them, is it a certified tank? Because there is paperwork that goes to the next owner on that. If it's an old tank and it is not being used, then you may find lenders that will say, if it's sitting there, I had this happen a number of times, that they had to fill it up with sand, either remove it or fill it up with sand. So that way there's no EPA issues. I've ran across that before, so it's the only reason I'm bringing it up. It's better to know that up front than here at closing, like, I don't know if it's certified, and then you got to scramble to find the certification for
and
that
some people might
underground
not
tank.
even know there's an underground tank.
Right.
That's true.
You know, some of them might not even know.
That's what
Yeah.
happened with my neighbor. She had no idea.
Yeah. If you list a home, the seller should know what's there, but a lot of your older homes, it may be there. But the thing is, once it goes to the next person, if there's an EPA issue, it falls on that person. They're not going to go back to the person that owned it before. So do your due diligence with your tanks. And I know, I'm sorry, June, for the agents that's going to work in the Shenandoah County area and the Rockingham County area, those agents are going to be privy to have the Virginia Realtor, what we still call the VAR contracts, which is different than the NVAR to a degree. Now, with the fuel in that, be observant of this. If you're in NVAR, it's saying that the fuel goes to the buyer. In the VAR, it's totally opposite. The seller's going to have that tank read by the fuel company, and they're going to generate a bill how much fuel is left in there. So be cognizant of that. So depending on which area you're working in, because I know Amber Fleck that's on here, she'll probably be doing, so I wanted to make that known.
Yeah. And that's good to point out. I actually did not know the difference, but when you're reading through your contract, just read it. You know, just don't scan over it and say, oh, well, I know all this. Just read it and make sure, because these are just little items that are so important. This IRS withholding taxes for foreign seller, you know, we're living in a global world now. So honestly, with that, I would call my title company and say, look, you know, this gentleman is from, I don't know, Middle East or whatever, and what do I do as well as all that is concerned? What it says here is, he is or is not a foreign person as defined by the Foreign Investment Real Property Tax. If seller is a foreign person, buyer may be required to withhold and pay to the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, up to 15% of the sales price on behalf of the seller and file an IRS form which includes both seller and buyer tax identification numbers. The parties agree to cooperate with each other and settlement agent to effectuate the legal requirements. If seller proceeds are not sufficient to cover the withholding obligation under FIRPTA, seller may be required to pay at settlement such additional certified funds. Now, I'm not sure, where would you get that information? I would think the title company would know about how that all works.
Yeah, they, because
Or,
they've got.
or a
to put on-
lender, you know,
Yeah.
they would know. So it just kind of puts a flag up if you know you're working with a foreign person.
Mhm.
Okay,
And it also has something to do with the amount of the sale.
right,
Yeah.
right.
That's true.
So, you've got a lender, you've got a title company, you can't know everything, just ask questions,
Right.
okay? The buyer representation, now they want to know, whether the buyer is going to live in the property or not live in the property, and there's two folds to that. The lender wants to know for sure, because he's not going to get 2% if he's not living in the property, as an investor. So they really want to know that, will he be living in the property as a principal residence? Unless specified in a written contingency, neither this contract nor the financing is dependent on the condition, the sake and settlement of a lease of another property. In other words, they're not going to settlement contingent on something else closing.
Oh,
Okay. Buyer acknowledges that seller is relying upon all buyer's presentation, including without limitation, the accuracy of the finance or credit information. So in other words, the buyer has represented to the seller, okay, I'm going to live in as the principal resident. I don't have to sell anything. I don't have to get money from a lease, and I'm going on with it. And everything I've told you about my credit and obtaining financing is true. Okay, he's making that representation. The seller shall deliver the property with smoke detectors installed and functioning in accordance with the laws and regulation of Virginia. And you'll find that out on the home inspection too, you know, if they're not working. Target or lead-based paint housing. This is a house we learned as a licensee built before 1978. Then it comes into play about the lead-based paint. So if you're working as a buyer's agent and the house was, you know, built in 1972, then as you write the offer, you want to make sure you can look up in the document file in your MLS and see if the lead-based paint is there, so that you can see what the seller disclosed as far as that is concerned. Now, in all the years that I've worked real estate, I've never had anybody do an assessment on lead-based paint. I don't know if Sheila has or not. Usually they just waive their right and go on, okay? But you still have to have the document because you have disclosed that to them, right? But they can get an assessment. I couldn't tell you where they could get an assessment, but there's got to be somebody around here that does the lead-based paint assessments. So, but you've got to make them know that you're giving them that offer to do so.
They have that lead-based paint in their drop downs that they can give to them, and there's information there that they can,
Right.
Pamphlet.
yeah,
Yeah.
that they can do it if they want.
But if you,
Did you mention anything about that they make sure that they're not doing one, then they send it, they need to use the one that the seller's already done?
no, that's what I'm saying. You have to, if you're working as a buyer's agent, you've got to go to MLS where they have the documents that was done by the listing company, and that's where you get it. If it's not in the documents, and I have seen some people not put documents in, you need to call the listing company or somebody and have them send that over, because that has to be part of your paperwork.
With the disclosure.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Same goes for the property disclosure.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have that and you've written an offer, and it can be made void. You have to have that Virginia property disclosure, it must be part of it. See, they can't make an informed decision unless you give them all the documents. You can't write and leave something out and then say, oh, well, I forgot to give you this. Not when they're spending that amount of money on a house. Your job is to keep them informed on what they need to know to make an informed decision. Okay? Oh, the good old wood destroying insects there. Let's see. Now, depending on who you work for, I guess you'll ask the seller or the buyer, whichever side of the transaction you're on, to get this done 90 days prior to closing. There's two scenarios. You can have the seller do it, but inspections are very cheap, maybe 50, 75 bucks. If I was a buyer's agent, I would probably say, well, why don't we just have our own done too? Because you don't know if that seller had Charlie Jones down the street doing. I mean, they're probably certified, but I just think as a buyer's agent, you have to say, you know what, it's not Dustin Hall's, why don't we go ahead and have our own? Because the first guy might have missed something. At least you make the suggestion. They don't have to, they can say, you know what, no, I'm comfortable with it. And either way, but you wanna bloom as a buyer's agent and offer, at least say, we might want to have it done ourselves.
So for the VAR, that's kind of flipped around. In the VAR, the seller pays for the pest inspection, but I would definitely, just because that contract states that, I agree with June. Yes, the seller can do it, but you, in your inspections, if you're getting inspections, you have the right to do it. So definitely.
Okay. Damage or loss, the risk, and this is self-evident, the risk and damage of property by fire, act of God, or other casualty remains with the seller until the execution and delivery of deed and conveyance to buyer at settlement. Now, I think I'll just go ahead and say this now. When you're at the settlement table, a certain part hadn't happened, we haven't gotten the money. Do not give the keys and let them move in. Even if they're playing White Christmas and they just bought a new puppy. No, they're not going into the house. It's not going to happen. And because what happens when they do it, they start rebuying the house. They say, oh, well, I didn't know this. And, and all of a sudden it becomes a mess. And the seller still has insurance on the house. But if they move their stuff in, they don't have any insurance on the contents. So it's just not a good idea. You have to be Simon LeGree and say, no. Okay. So title, they go on and on about here. Here's what the thing of a title is. When they go to closing, they want a clear and marketable title. And that's what the title company does. The title company, and I will tell you early on when you have a ratified contract, please get it over to the title company then. Don't wait 2 weeks and give it to them because there could be a cloud on the title. There could be a big mess waiting at the end. And you haven't gotten that over to them where you should have known you need to get it to them then. Just the same way you want to get it to the lender. And because they will know that it could be as little as them not paying their homeowners dues that could hold it up. So you want to make sure that you get that information over to the title company. Let me see what else we got on that. So why with the title, the seller's basically saying, okay, I'm giving you clear title to my property. The one thing that comes into play that's kind of, I don't even know why they still have this, the silent lien, which is the mechanic's lien, that can come into play because they can do that after we close. They can go down and say, well, I never got paid, and it can go to the new landowner. I'm not sure why Virginia has put up with that, but it's still out there. Okay. But otherwise, a title company does their job, and in the state of Virginia, normally it is by a general warranty deed. And that goes back to the beginning of time, okay? But you'll see on trustee sales and various other types of sales that it would be a special warranty deed. In other words, it just goes back to the former grantor. It doesn't go back all the years, you know, or foreclosure, bankruptcy, all that type, and usually it's a special warranty deed. Then again, that should be in the listing. Now here's the mechanics lien. Let's see. People who have performed labor or finished materials for the construction, removal, repair, or improvement of any building or structure to file a lien against the property. The lien may be filed at any time after the work is commenced or the material is finished, but not later than or earlier, not later than the earlier of 90 days from the last day of the month. I mean, who in the hell would know all that? Okay. Crazy. But anyway, an effective lien for work performed prior to the date of settlement may be filed after settlement. Legal counsel should be consulted. This is really scary sometimes to talk to this about people. You know, at one time, they used to have builders come in and they would have all their invoices. Now, if you know that work has been done on the property of maybe there was a pest inspection they had to fix, I'd want to see the invoices. I'd want to have the opposing people have all that.
I always ask.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, remember, before I forget, that when a home inspection is done, unless it's like an FHA, please do not send it to your lender. Please do not send it. Unless the lender, if it's one where they want the home inspection, because you can get into all kinds of stuff if you send that to the lender. They'll tell you if they need the home inspection, if it's FHA or if it's VA. Yeah. But otherwise, just, it is what it is. You keep it to yourself.
Reiterating what June said because everybody that's on here are new, and make sure that if you go to a house and it looks like the septic has been disturbed, the ground around the septic, use your eyes. If you see that there's been something like a new roof put on, or you see all that, make sure you talk with that agent about wanting to make sure those things are paid for too. Because somebody bought a house and they had septic work done when the listing got done.
Right.
But nothing, so there was a mechanics lien after, so the person got socked with some septic bills.
Well, yeah, and I think Sheila's so correct in that. When you are showing a property, you're even listing a property, open your eyes, look for things, you know, and see, well, maybe that should be fixed. As simple as a hand railing, if it's a VA thing. Look and see, is there water? What's going on with the septic system, okay? We can't be held too much against it, but still at the same time, I think we should notice and pick up on things. Okay, we went over the possession date, and the possession date is when we get the keys, the money is paid, and everybody's happy, and you're down there, you're looking at your commission, you say, I'm happy to get paid. That's good.
Happy day.
Yeah, happy days are here. There are some they're miserable. They're miserable closings.
You're dancing just because it's over. You don't even care if you get paid or just glad it's
You're
over.
walking out and saying, well, I'm getting a new job. I don't know what it's gonna be, but I'm leaving this real estate business.
Don't get scared, everybody. It's all good. You seriously laugh about it afterwards.
Well,
FYI, you guys, for you guys that are going to be new, literally what June just said, that's how you're going to feel after some. It's been a nightmare. You finally got to closing and you're questioning yourself, why did you get in this? You know what? The sun will come out tomorrow and it's going to be a good day, and you just went through a lesson that you'll probably never go through again.
well, and I highly recommend, hopefully you all get to know the agents in here and the various companies. Ask one of them to go to closing with you, because it's a new experience. Just sit there, you know, and it's actually a good time to keep your mouth shut.
And get with Tamra at Freedom Settlement, or Andrea or somebody over there, and let them know they're happy to let you set in, because the more you set in and read, look, when you get that ALTA, that settlement statement, as we call it,
Yeah,
make sure you understand what they are, what all the figures are on there, because it's going to be up to you to look and catch some things, because the more eyes, people make mistakes, but I mean, look at everything.
yeah,
And
look
that's
at it, just don't go in blindly, participate.
Right.
Participate on it. And, you can always go to our title company, you can always go over to Success Mortgage, and if you don't understand it, they'll tell you. Just reach out and they will tell you. Doesn't mean you have to use them, but I tell you, our title company and our, and Success Mortgage, you're not gonna beat them, as far as I'm concerned. They're just so, so good. All right, now, okay, the
fees.
various fees, what's that, so that goes to the title company, there's gonna be fees. And they're gonna go on this side or that side, depending on, the grantor's tax is gonna go on the seller side, but then you're gonna have something else go on the buyer side. Pretty much in the state of Virginia, the seller pays the grantor's tax. He pays to have the deed prepared. He probably pays to sit at the table. And maybe anything else that he has to pay. Maybe if he hadn't paid his homeowner's dues or something like that. But most of the fees are going to go on the buyer side. Now the seller might have agreed to pay a subsidy, so they're going to break it down on both sides. And like Sheila said, read it, and if you see something that's a mistake, because they can make mistakes, then bring it to their attention, or at least say, "Am I understanding this correctly?" And then when we get to the adjustments, again, these are going to be things that are going to be taken out or adjusted, like the taxes. They'll be adjusted for the period. You pay taxes for the period of time you live in the house, and then it goes to the other person. So yes, there will be adjustments, but you don't have to do these adjustments. They will be done by the title company, and the lender is giving them the information that they have to do that. Okay. Attorney fees you never want to see, because that usually what that means is somebody wants to default on the contract. And if somebody wants to default on the contract, the first thing you should tell them is this: you need to go see an attorney. There will be ramifications from this. Okay. And because when it comes down to it, if they default on that contract, then there's going to be money that they're going to have to pay to the non-defaulting party. They will also probably have to pay money to the real estate company, to the title company, to the appraiser. So it's not, it's not a good thing to default. And I would explain that very clear to them when you're writing the contract. Please know that this is a legal document. If you don't understand or have any questions, or if I have not explained it to you that you understand, you need to have an attorney look it over. Okay? Because the state of Virginia is weird in this sense. They say to us, "Oh, real estate agent, you can't act as an attorney."
Right.
But yet they throw all this stuff at us. Like, you almost got to be an attorney to understand it. So you can always use that. You're welcome to talk to an attorney. You can talk to my broker if you have any questions, if I haven't explained it correctly to you. Okay. It says there, in the event a dispute arises resulting in the broker to include any agent, license, or employee of broker being made a party to any litigation by buyer or seller, the parties agree that the party who brought the broker into the litigation shall indemnify the broker for all its reasonable legal expenses incurred unless the litigation results in a judgment against the broker. So even if they pull you into it, they best have a good case against you.
Okay.
Because they're going to have to pay for it. Okay. Now, performance means that everything is going fine. All the funds have been delivered, executed documents to the settlement agent will constitute sufficient tender of performance. In other words, when you're at that table, the funds are there, and they get everything together, they go out and record, all that stuff. It's done and performance has happened. And then going back again to this default, we just talked about it. Default means that when they had a meeting of minds, that's what they have to totally understand what they're signing as a contract. If it goes into default, then it's out of our hands. It goes to the attorneys, and then the ching money starts. So the best thing for them to do is if they're not ready, then don't sign anything until they are ready. Right? And the deposit comes into play when there is a default. And here's what happens. You know, yeah, you can say, okay, well, we'll just release everything. But if somebody's mad about it, they're not going to sign the release. So there it is. It sits in Steve's office until the Lord knows when. Now, if the contract for any reason turns out to be voided, then it happens, both parties will sign, the release will go back to the buyer.
And sometimes it'll go back to it'll go to the seller, just depending on,
Yes, either way,
Yeah, who-
depending.
usually the buyer though.
That's why I don't care about big deposits, because you don't have to have those big deposits to make a contract. You know, if you got 7,000 or 8,000 sitting there, man, that's a lot of money to have it tied up in court. But if you got 1,000, it's not as bad. The hurt's not as bad, you know, because it's not getting any interest. It's not getting any interest.
Okay, where are we at?
We're up to the next, other disclosures. Let me see where I am here. What number is that one? 29. Long contract. isn't it?
Yeah.
Very long.
We're all getting our papers on 29.
I'm looking for mine, and I'm supposed to be in charge. Okay, well, let's go.
Yeah, here you go.
Okay, the buyer, yeah, I got that. I don't have my notes here. The buyer and seller should read this contract to be sure that the terms accurately express their respective understanding as to the intentions and agreements. Here we're going back to a meeting of the minds. You have a property to sell. I want to buy your property. I'm making an offer, you've accepted, and we're going to go to closing. We've had a meeting of the minds. Right? And once that is done, then you, the agent, have to take the steps that are required to get it to closing. So when you get into zip forms, and I'm sure Sheila will go over this more with you, but you somehow in your business, you have to show, I think, how they get their forms, what's needed in the computer and everything. They have to be aware. How do you keep your contingencies? How do you know that it's contingent on financing? How do you keep a record so that you know I have to deal with that?
As far as contingent on financing, they have to first look. There's templates when you guys learn your zip forms. There's templates with everything. So if it's a contract to purchase for residential or contract for land, all the forms that you need are going to be in there. Now, for contract to purchase, if you go back to the beginning when it says financing, VA, FHA, USDA, things like that, when you open up your, and this is going to be on you, I mean, now you know they're getting a FHA, so when you open up those forms, there's an FHA document that needs to be to accompany the offer, because it's letting the person know, the seller know, and they sign on it. Like if there's other things that need to be done throughout the contract that FHA requires, then everybody knows up front. They may be asking for stuff. We're saying, yes, we signed it, and we will get it to you. Now, it's up to the agent to know that. So when you're putting your offer together, make sure you put that together. When it's finally ratified, and you will learn how to upload your documents into, download your documents into our dashboard. Once you do that and you know how to put them in the buckets they go, the admins will look through, and if you're missing something, they're going to let you know. You're going to get a message to let you know that you're missing a document.
And of course, I'm old and I'm of the old school, but I had to work with a calendar, and I would have the person's name on the date, a certain contingency. And you don't want to wait until the day of the contingency. You want to be 2 or 3 days earlier so that you can handle it.
Manage
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I
manage it the
misunderstood.
way you can with technology, which, they didn't have back in the Stone Age. But, calendar, whatever, but it's your responsibility
Yeah.
to get, to know about the contingencies and to make sure. Because if you don't, they're gonna say to you, well, why do I need you?
Right.
What have you done for me? They're expecting you to do a good job.
Right.
And they get mad that we're even paid money anyway. So, especially now in the big houses and what you make in them, you're like, so you really do want to do a good job and check all the contingencies. And, I try to relate it to a pregnancy. Okay. You get pregnant, you go through all these months, you do this, you do that, you don't drink wine, you don't do anything, you exercise, you do all that. And at the end, you got this beautiful baby come out holding a commission check. And so, so you've done your job. Just think of it as a pregnancy. Okay? All right. Now, other disclosures, what do we have on here? Okay, we read that. That, in other words, if they don't understand anything about the contract, they can talk to legal counsel. They can also talk to our broker. If you feel stymied about something, don't get frustrated. There's always people to ask. There's always Sheila that could come in and maybe she can make them feel a little bit better. Maybe she'll explain it differently. Okay. So what you don't want to do is struggle with it and make yourself appear stupid. You want to ask for advice on everything. And please, this is so important. Please, God, do not write a contract without talking to Sheila, me, broker, other agent. Don't think you can go out there and write that first contract. And, oh man, I know how to do this. No, you don't. You don't have a clue. Okay. So they've got to really, really ask to be helped.
Yeah. For the new ones, we're implementing that. We're going to figure out how many that we want to review first before you actually present it. But we're going to figure out
Yeah, we'll figure out how to do it. If we have to do it on Zoom, we can do it on Zoom, and we can do a question and answer thing. We can look at the various sides. We'll get it done. But I just don't want you to go out there writing something. Actually, you're representing the company, and the company does not want you going out there unless you're feeling sure. And you want to go. It's like going for a listing. You want to say, I'm going to see if I want this. Not, I'm scared to death. I'm scared to death. I don't know if I'll get it. In the same way as writing a contract, I feel good. I wrote a good contract. The other thing I would suggest when you write your contract, if you're working for people out of town or something, send them off to lunch or whatever, and get some peace and quiet to write your first contract. You don't want a lot of distractions. Maybe when you're a seasoned agent, you can sit there and write it while people are chatting. But I would say find a quiet place and write it to keep your brain functioning. Okay. All right. Now it says here, these disclosures are not intended to create a contingency. Any contingency must be specified by adding appropriate terms to this contract. Okay. The parties acknowledge the following disclosures. They've been through inspections. They've learned about the property condition. Okay. They've learned about the legal requirements. They've learned about the financing. They learned what the buyer and seller is doing with the broker and the real estate agent. In other words, they have been told all this information regarding the property, regarding the financing, regarding any legal things regarding delivery. In other words, we've gone over all this stuff with them, that they have an understanding. And let me go up a little bit, Sheila. They understand about the taxes, property insurance. Here's another thing too. We talked about when you get a contract on a property, be sure they go out and get on their property insurance. It could be that it might be a unique property out in, I don't know, Star Tannery or some godforsaken place, and they don't have water or whatever. So you want to make sure they go ahead and get the property insurance, and they know where it is. The title insurance, oh God, please have them get title insurance.
Yes, Amber Walker. Thanks.
If they don't get title insurance, here's what can happen. They can move into the house, and they could have Uncle Charlie, who was on the deed, and somebody forgot about him, knock on the door and say, well, nobody has. All of a sudden, you've got a cloud on the title. Title insurance is a one-time expense, and it covers them for the lifetime.
Okay.
So if you don't understand it, I would even get a book probably. I don't know if Tamara has any books on title insurance or not, a brochure on it. But if they say, no, I don't want to get it, say, you know, I really need you to talk to our title company. I'm just feeling really good that you should do that, and a home warranty, but title company for the title. And if they don't, again, what do? We go back to the office. I really wish you would consider the title insurance is so important. Cover your butt on that. And the same thing, like when you take a listing, make sure they get a home warranty. Remember, you're the professional. Tell them, no, we're going to get a home warranty. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And on property insurance, if you're the listing agent or working for a buyer, make sure if there's any water anywhere near, like water streams or anything like that, make sure that it's not in flood, like it needs flood insurance, because that's not your regular insurance. And honestly, there's flood insurance out there like $12,000, $20,000 a year.
Very
Wow.
expensive.
Yeah, very expensive. So it's very, very extremely important. People want to live by the lake. I want to be on the water, you know.
Yeah.
I want to have a dock, you know, that's all fine and dandy. But if they are
From the
in
front porch.
a flood zone, that flood insurance can be extremely expensive, and they will not be able to afford it.
See, what happened over the years, we used to have surveys done all the time. And when the survey would show whether it was in the flood area or not, but then all of a sudden, surveys didn't become part of the offers anymore. They just sort of disappeared. So she's right on that.
And you can go online. That's the beauty about technology. Look in our dashboard. You should be able to go back there, or just Google it and go online and look. FEMA has flood maps, so you can pull up a property, see if it's in the flood map. I will say that if it's say it's 7 acres, I had this happen. One little teeny tiny corner at the foot of the hill, I mean, literally, probably, I don't even know, the size of that, this bulletin board here, the TV, that's the only portion of the property that had water in a 100-year flood zone, and she was gonna have to pay flood insurance. I did appeal it, and it was taken away. So, because there's no way, so just be, once again, like Jen was talking, use your eyes when you're going out looking at property, and just know if there's water anywhere near, you better ask about and look into the flood stuff for your client.
Well, going back to the title insurance too, remember we talked briefly about a mechanics lien. Well, there you go, with the title insurance, that would cover that.
Okay.
Okay. And, or it would cover an error that wasn't, say the property was built on the wrong lot, or it was extended over to another lot. They can do a boundary adjustment or whatever. Title insurance will cover that. And it's a one-time thing, one time.
Right.
So if you're spending $400,000 or $300,000 on a house, and it costs you $600 or $700 to get title insurance, get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, honestly.
Yes.
Let's see, you can buy different various kinds. Assignability simply means this: you've written a contract between John Smith and John Jones. they can't arbitrarily assign it to somebody else who's not on the contract,
Right,
unless the buyer and seller agree it's okay.
okay.
Yeah.
If they agree, it's okay. But otherwise, it is who it is on the contract.
Or it says, or assigned.
Yeah, or assigns, right.
Yeah, it's scary.
Definitions, this, simply what this is saying is, these are terms that have been used in the contract. The date of ratification is simply that all terms of the contract have been agreed upon. And you notice in your contract form, it has down there the date of ratification. So, let's see, appraisal means that they're gonna do evaluation of the property. I've seen some where, I think, was it, Melinda said some of them are saying they don't have to have an appraisal. on
Waiving
property.
appraisals, yeah.
Waiving appraisals. But that doesn't make the appraisers happy, but, days or days means calendar days unless otherwise on the contract. So we're going through the terms of what they have said in the contract. For the purpose of computing time periods, the first day will be the day following delivery, and the time period will end at 9 p.m. on the day specified. The masculine includes the feminine. They need to get rid of that.
Yeah.
Of course it does.
And I personally always put on the other, like when we get to the very end, I always put days herein and on any additional addendum shall be business days.
Right, right.
I do
If you're
that,
worried about that, then you should put that down.
especially when you're around holiday seasons and stuff. Yeah, I just make it a habit so I never forget.
Yeah.
Okay, masculine includes feminine, legal expenses, means attorney fees, court costs, litigation expenses. We're just talking about that. Notices means a unilateral communication from one party to the other. All notices required under this contract will be in writing. In other words, anything that's pretty much happening in the contract is going to be in writing. Because I know you all learned the statute of frauds, you have to have anything in Virginia in writing. Let's see, buyer and purchaser may be interchangeably in this contract, and any accompanying addenda or notices may be used interchangeably. What that means? Buyer and purchaser may be used interchangeably.
Oh,
Well-
yeah, so I might say buyer here, but I might say purchaser here. So in some,
Okay, all right, I'm with you now. Okay, brain on you. Okay, seller subsidy, we talked about that. That is the payment the seller towards the buyer's charges, included but not limited to loan origination fee, discount points, buy down or subsidy fees, prepaids, and other charges, as allowed by the lender. It is buyer's responsibility to confirm with any lender that the entire credit provided herein may be utilized. Okay, so when you go to the closing table, and maybe they said they pay $6,000 to $5,000, we try to use up all that money if we can. Might throw a home warranty in there, any other kind of expense, repairs, you can throw stuff in. You don't want to leave money on the table.
Right.
And Tamara's real good about that, your title company. They'll see and say, well, let's put this in, let's put that in. You want to use as much of the money as possible. Okay.
Because it goes back to the seller if they don't use it, right?
Mhm. All right. This contract on miscellaneous may be signed in one or more counterparts, each of which is deemed to be an original, and all of which together constitute one and the same instrument. I guess with technology now, it's not as bad. It used to be if the wife was in Missouri and the guy was here, you have them going back and forth, and the documents would be she signed one and he signed one, but you put them all together as one thing. So all the counterparts. Void contract, if this contract becomes void and no further force and effect without default by either party, both parties will immediately execute a release directing that deposit be refunded in full, so the buyer according to the terms of the deposit paragraph. Home warranty, you'll get involved with that when you get your listings, but if it's not in the listing, then if I was a buyer's agent, I'm going to ask the seller to pay for my home warranty. And they get information on all the home warranty stuff, right, Sheila?
Yes, that is actually in your template also, is the home warranties. Because for E&O insurance, you have to ask them. This is not an option for you. It has to be in there, or once again, that's one thing that has to be in there, or you don't get paid. So you want to make sure that the E&O insurance wants to know that you have asked them, you've offered it to them. So it's
Okay.
either yes or
And
no.
don't they learn an orientation too? Doesn't Marcia come in and talk to them about the warranty and stuff?
Yeah, Marcia will go over, actually, orientation is next week on the 19th, and Marcia is at noon. And she can go over the differences between HSA and American Home
So
Shield.
does she record that in case the girls are working or something?
We actually, honestly, you can. I'm glad you said that, because I did record one of them, and Stephen put it up on our video library. So when you have the ability, once you get your pass your PSI, for those that haven't passed their PSI, once you pass your PSI and you come in, we get all your documents going. We have to have all of that before we can get you into the systems. I can show you, once all your license is available and you're with a association, you'll get your zip forms, and I can show you where that is.
Okay. So on the home warranty, when we go back to that, now if the seller is not agreeing to one, then make sure that buyer gets a home warranty. Because it will come back on you. He's gonna say, I talked to my neighbor and they had a home warranty. And why didn't you even talk to them? Even if you talk to them, they're gonna have a short memory, okay? And then we cover ourselves again. I really think you should rethink getting a home warranty. Make that paper trail, okay?
Yeah.
Time is of the essence simply means this, that, and I know you learned this in your class, that it has to go down on the day they say it's going to go down. If things change on that, then you need to do an addendum or an amendment to the contract, okay? If this contract is contingent on financing and the contingency has not been removed or satisfied, any delay of the settlement date necessary to comply with the buyer's lender's obligations under RESPA disclosure is not a default by the buyer. In other words, if they do not get their financing when they said they were going to get the finance, it's not a default on them, okay? And seller but seller can declare the contract void. It's not a default, but he can declare the contract void.
Okay.
So you want to give enough time to get the thing settled. There again, you got to talk to your lender. Look, I need to make sure I'm going to get this closed. Give me the time frame that I need. A lot of times, when you're writing an offer, you figure probably about 30 to 45 days from the day you write the offer is when it's going to close. Depending, unless they have a load of money or cash or something like that, it can close sooner. Arbitration, go ahead. Sue.
Now, for the new ones, I just want to reiterate what June was going over, is just make sure when you're writing the offer, because 30 to 45 days is a good time frame, but everybody's situations are different, like their type of loan that they're getting, things that they're going to have to bring for them to, so, and they know what's on their plate, how busy they are or how backed up, certain lender that they're working with are. So you need to contact your lender, the lender for your buyer, and ask them what is a realistic time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I say sleep with your lender, because that is going to be so important for you to have information back and forth.
Right.
Now I need for you to be true with me. I need to put this in the contract. How much time am I going to, because especially if you get into these contracts where they have to have special money from the government and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So
Classes and all
yeah,
that.
all
Yeah.
that
The
stuff.
DHDAs or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now arbitration, I don't think they do arbitration at our board, Sheila. I'm pretty sure that they don't do arbitration
Yeah.
at our board. I don't think they do.
Really?
I will check that out because I'm not sure why they would have that in there, but, you know, if a contract starts going south, as a broker, I used to be a broker at a company. An agent would call me in. It's always good, get the people around the table. Let's see if we can work this out, okay? It works better to get the people around the table if at all possible. I guess Zoom now. But, so there's a different perspective and see if we can work it out. Sometimes, one other person can maybe make them see it differently, okay? So do anything you can do to save it. Call your broker in, call Sheila in, call somebody in to see what's going on and get a different perspective on it, okay? Now, the next thing is real estate parties. This is simply whether or not somebody within the thing is licensed in Virginia or any other state, buyer or seller, or related to one of the parties in the transaction. And the entire agreement is, goes on. If they die, it goes on. It goes to their heirs. So if it hasn't closed, it goes, terms of the contract go on and it goes to their heirs. This contract will be binding upon the parties and each of their respective heirs, executors, administrators, successors, and permitted assigns. The provisions not satisfied at settlement will survive the delivery of the deed and will not be merged therein. This contract, unless amended in writing, contains the final and entire agreement of the parties, and the parties will not be bound by any terms, conditions, and oral statements, warranties, or representation. So just know this, it goes on to the heirs.
Okay.
It doesn't end there. It goes on to the heirs. Now, 39, I love 39 because this is where, when you get your zip forms and that, and you're writing, see where it has home inspection. Oh yeah, I gotta put that contingency, that base. Oh, I gotta put that too. You know, you just go down there. It's so helpful, you know, to have that there so that you know what forms you have to have. Okay, and I don't know that private wells and septic. You could probably say upon that. What do you have to have on that, Sheila?
There is a form in there if they, contingency form for waiving or for your inspections and stuff for that.
Okay. And then your lead-based paint. So it's all there, you know, and it's a good reminder. It's good to have at the end. And the disclosure of sales price to an appraiser, that just means that you can give an appraiser if he calls, you can give him the sales price listed, and you can also tell him about the financing. At one time, we weren't allowed to do that, but now we can. And other terms where you don't want to write too much other terms, this is where the not being an attorney comes in. So if you do subject, verb, short and sweet, okay, and then the date of ratification.
The one thing I've had to put down here, I forget where at in the contract, I don't remember what paragraph, but when I want, oh, that's in the listing, but they still have another thing. It won't allow you in zip forms to actually click one or the other, or like to put an amount in there. You can't just put not applicable or whatever. So I want if I want to, I do that here. So that's what I did. And right here is where I always write days herein and any other addendum to this contract shall be business days.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I just always write it there
Say it
personally.
again. Days herein.
Days herein and any additional days herein with contract and any additional addendums shall be business days.
Now, are we gonna do, am I doing listings with you with them? Are we gonna do that?
Yeah,
too?
we could do that too.
Yeah, we need to do that too.
I think we'll go over, like you can give them the scenarios. I want to point something else out. This, while we're here, see this box here that says date of ratification? this is a good thing about using DocuSign because things go back and forth, but when everything is fully ratified, and ratification means a meeting of the minds. If you send this offer to someone and they change anything in it,
It's a rejection.
yes, it's a rejection. It comes back to you. Your buyer has to decide, do I want to accept that or do I want to counter it again? So, so the thing is, this ratification means that everybody within the body of this bilateral agreement, everybody has agreed to all terms and conditions. Once that's happened, that is the date of ratification. So if you send this, submit it on Monday, and it's not finally agreed upon until Friday, the date of ratification must, and I'm saying must with capital, it must be in there, because that means every date that's within this contract is actually starting from this date, not the date the offer was written,
Right.
but the date it actually became a contract, it became ratified, and this is when you actually have a contract. That's when all these dates within this body start activating. That's when the time clock starts. So make sure June actually brought up a good point. It's very important that you have some kind of system somewhere, somehow, because if you miss something, if you miss a very important date, you could have cost those buyers a lot of money. You could, or you could be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Let me add one thing too. In this market, apparently, even though I'm not really writing contracts anymore or listing properties, apparently there's a lot of offers going on back and forth. So, the listing agent really doesn't have to get back to you. It's nice if they do, but they don't have to. And sometimes if they've got 10 offers on the property, they may not get back to you. It's no rule that they have to get back to you. It's the polite thing to do. Because see, down the road, they may need you. And it's nice when you get a call that says, gee, I'm sorry, the other property got the listing or got the sale. And thank you for doing that. Now that's what I would do. And that's the polite thing to do. And that's what you should do. You always call them back. You never know. You don't want to stir yourself up with another agent,
That's
So,
It's the whole world.
Let me see.
a very good point.
The other thing too is remember that if you've written a contract and your people get cold feet, then you need to make contact to withdraw that offer before it's signed by the other party. Because once it's signed by the other party, it's a done deal. So you need to do that and follow up with paperwork on it that you have withdrawn the offer at such and such time. Okay?
And you can put a time that they have to respond by also.
Right, and so the best thing to
Where
do
is that?
This one doesn't, you can write it in there. I don't know that the NVAR, in the VAR, it actually has a date that it is. You can actually, if it's a time is of the essence, because if they don't get this one, they need the other one, you can put it in there.
Okay.
So the best thing to do as a listing agent, if they call you before they can say a word, is you say, you just bought a house.
Now, on here, on the bottom section, make sure that you fill this out.
Yeah, that, I don't know the office ID stuff. I didn't do that on that, but.
Okay, so our office, you can find out from me, once you get your license and you're going to be doing business, you want to keep this with you somewhere where you have readily access to it. So you need the office, the VA, the Virginia firm's license number, our broker code, depending on where you're at. Winchester is CBPR2, Warren County CBPR1, and Shenandoah CBPR3. So, but make sure you fill all this out in here. And on the MLS sheet, go ahead and do this, because on the MLS sheet, you should be able to get some of this information from there, because on the MLS sheet, it has their MLS ID on
Right,
there
yeah,
also.
listing
Listing broker,
on there.
Yeah, and listing broker. So it's really helpful when an agent takes the time to fill out as much as they can.
Right, and you don't want to fill out the other side, they'll do their side, you just fill out as much as you can.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send this scenario to you all, so I'm gonna need all the email addresses, you can send them to me, Sheila.
Okay.
And I really want you to look at it and do it, but I don't want you to get any help. I
Okay,
want you to do it on your own,
okay,
because when we meet, or however we're gonna do it, whether it be Zoom or whatever, I want you to understand it by understanding it,
mhm,
okay? And if you don't understand it, I need to know what you don't understand.
okay.
Right. And then we'll talk, Sheila, about how many scenarios you wanna do, or,
Yeah.
but it's.
I guess the scenarios, why don't we do it like this? We can have a kind of and we're figuring this out, but if they've got it and we kind of know they got it, if we say 20, but they got it by the fifth one or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that.
Well,
we
and
don't
they've gotta
wanna
really
have
be
it.
able to get into the forms too,
Yeah.
because we don't know if they got it, if it's a conventional loan and they gotta go in there and get that contingency, they gotta go in and get a home inspection contingency.
When you get your license and you can get set up in zip forms, then we can get you into zip forms. We're actually talking right now of actually having a tutorial, a video tutorial, actually showing step by step exactly how Holly did, how to upload your documents, actually one on zip forms.
Okay, and here's the deal, if at the end, remember that housekeeping thing? If I send you a scenario that is contingent on conventional financing, now I'll know you got it if at the end of the contract you mark that it's a contingency. Then I'll realize, well, they know it's a contingency even if they can't get into the form. Does that
So
make
did
sense?
that make sense to
Okay.
you guys, Amber? So you won't have access to get the forms that June's talking about, like get the financing, but she just said at the very end of the contract, she'll know, because if you mark it, she'll know.
Now, do they have contract forms, all of them? So-
I emailed them so they
Okay,
can print
good.
them out.
All right, I'll send that to you over the weekend, and just you put a time frame on it.
Yeah, you go ahead, and what time do
I'd
you
like to
think?
get it back early part of next week, middle of next week, as soon as you can get it to me, frankly. And
Okay,
then we'll decide how we want to go over the contracts with them, we'll decide that. Okay.
yeah,
I have to step away for a second.
okay. Does anybody have any questions before we wrap it up? Is it pretty clear as
Not as
mud?
clear as mud.
Yeah, it's an inspector at my door. I have to go to the door real quick.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Sheila. Can you hear me? It's Megan.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Megan, you got to come on. I am recording it, so.
Okay. I have several questions, even though I have a little bit of experience. I got a punch list when we meet this evening. If it's okay, I don't have a whole lot of time here. I don't want to.
Oh, yeah. Bring your questions this evening. I'm going to be here.
Okay, I'll see you shortly after 4, no later than 4:30. But
Okay.
I appreciate your help, June.
Absolutely, and look for your scenario in your email, and I was telling the other gals that just do it with no assistance, because that's the way you learn, and then we can go.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Have a good one, Megan.
Bye, you guys, thank you.
Bye.
And soon as it gets uploaded, because it's out there in the cloud, however that works, I don't have a clue. It's out there somewhere in the cloud.
You, Jenny.
And Stephen will
Absolutely.
upload it and I'll talk with him. And then I'll get it to you. So that way you guys can go over it also if you want.
Okay.
Amber, Flex, stay on for a little bit. Tell us what-
Okay, I'm back.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I gotta go to Martin.
Okay. Hey, Doretha, we're closing up for now, and she's going to send you the
Scenario.
scenario, and then just do it the best you can, just on your own without any help. Don't Google things, just do it the best you can. And because like June said, that's how you learn. There's our June bug. We call her June bug. So I'll send an email to her and June will get back with you guys, okay?
And send them the contract.
And then Amber Fleck is actually, I'm gonna talk to her for a minute, so I'm gonna stay on with her. And then I'll close out the.
Okay, I'll see you this evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, June.
Okay.
See you too.
All right.
Quick,
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, just one real quick question. Did you, it was someone that you told me that to ask if they were going to do a class? Or
Class
some,
is-
the class for the practicing principles, but I could come in just on the Virginia licensing, Virginia.
Oh, you know what? They hadn't got enough people. Let me call her. I just made myself a note. As soon as I get done talking with Amber and I
Sure.
down. Oh, hold on.